Okay, starting Parak Kaf Gimel right now, which is a parak entitled B'derach Kiniyas Ha'anava, parak about acquiring humility. The previous parak that we did was all about the details of humility, and as of course I say, there's a lot of opening things. Is that the different chapters are the midos that we discuss are in order of easiest to attain to the most difficult to attain. So the midah of real, honest humility is not something that's easily attainable, but we're gonna discuss right now ways and how one would go about attaining a nava. It says as follows: Shnaim heim hamargilim es adam el ha'anava. That there are two practices that could accustom a person to becoming humble. Regilus, a hisponing. So regilus is like constantly doing it and habituating yourself to it. And hisponinus is to think about it, contemplate it. Not we're going to see it's not to contemplate enough and just think, be humble, but it's think about, it's going to be, and we're going to discuss these things tonight, to think about certain things that bring one to humility. It starts as follows. It says Haragilus, says when it comes to training in this area, Kushiyah Adam Margil Atmo Ma'at his Nahig Beshiflus al Haderach Shizacharnim. That a person should train themselves slowly, step by step, little by little, to act in a lower way. He says, as we mentioned above, the previous paragraph where he's going to say the points right now, and this will jog your memory. Yeshivas hamakomos hapachusim, to sit in a lowly place. It doesn't have to be literal lowly. It could be, for example, you go to shul and you're sitting in the back row off to the side, hopefully not talking, right? It doesn't have to be sitting in the front center. So to sit in places that show more humility. Another example, to walk in the back. You don't have to be the leader of the group, of the posse. Lil Bosh begets nuim, to wear clothes that are tanua, meaning I think what it's saying more like you don't have to wear something that flaunts your muscles. You don't have to wear like certain tank tops or like tight clothing to show that you're strong. So that's a form of humility. The haina mechubadim, that they should be though mechubad, meaning you don't want to, like you're a bentora, you don't want to wear something that's garbage. You should wear something that's honorable, ach lo mefa'arim, but not something that's so impressive. Not something that people see, meaning I was discussing something different about flaunting, but this is referring to not something that someone will say like, wow, like how expensive that is. Wow, like he wears like those shirts. Each shirt is like $95, right? Or that tie is $150 tie. Those shoes are this. So to wear something that's sanua, something that's distinguished, honorable, but not something that's like so over the top. Because when a person accustoms themselves to act, to sit in a certain way, we discussed in the previous practice, speak a certain way, and now to dress a certain way. So through this way, so humility will enter your heart slowly, little by little, until it is perfectly there. There's a footnote here, an interesting footnote, that there's an idea from the Gemara that speaks about how when a person wants to do something holy, so it says that Hashem's going to help you out. You're going to get a lot of siyata d'shmaya if you have proper intentions. But the Vilna Gaon says that there are times, though, where a person wants to achieve a certain level and it just doesn't happen. And he says, why is that? Because when we say Hashem's going to help you out and you're going to be able to achieve it, that's only if you go step by step. But if a person jumps levels, a person who like barely keeps halacha, and they decide, the next day after Yom Kippur, like I'm gonna be the gadol. I want to be the gadol door right now. If you want to be the gadol door and works on it little by little, it's amazing. But right now I'm going to the top level. I'm gonna sit in the base for 20 hours tomorrow and sleep 4 hours. I heard that Rav Elyashiv did that. Like if a person were to do that at a very low level, it would not work very well for them. A person has to naturally grow. I remember my Rav Simon, he used to say, quote the Chavetz Chaim, I believe it was, where someone would say like, how do you become such a Talmid Chacham? You know what he responded? He said, I learned on Fridays. That like a certain day, people were more lax on Fridays, and he had that just as serious as a Monday or a Wednesday. So a person has to go step by step. Continues. Kihine, bios teva leva adam lazuach ulehisnase. That a person is naturally, their heart is gonna think that you're superior, that you're gonna lift yourself up. Kasha lav lakor meikara hanitia hativis hados. That it becomes difficult for a person. That's why any of us is towards the end. It becomes difficult for a person to totally uproot that, for a person to remove their exalted way of looking at themselves. Ella im came back ulos hachitzonos hamsuras biado yamshech ma'at hadavar pnimius habilti masur lo kolka. That it's only going to work if he starts taking on external actions, meaning it's not going to work right away to, I want to be humble, so let me say I'm humble and then I'm humble. No, you have to do some of these external actions like we discussed. And then slowly but surely it's gonna penetrate into who you are, into your primus, meaning into your actual character and the part that you're less in control of, meaning we're in control of our actions. We can't always decide what we want to think about. So the fact that we control our actions to act humble, so the more we do it, the more the things we can't control, like our thoughts, are actually going to change. This is just like we spoke about with Zrizos. Zrizos about like alacrity going, like trying to run towards mitzvos. You want to be excited about mitzvos? Start running towards mitzvos. Oh, you might think, why should I run towards this? I don't really care about mitzvos right now. The more you actually do the actions, the more it will penetrate into you. As all this is like the Gemara says in Brachos and Daf Yud Zayin Aleph, Adam Arum B'Yira. A person should always be resourceful in Yira. Let me okay, sorry. A person should always be resourceful in their Yira. The Hainu sheyivakesh tachbulos neged hateva v'ntiyaso ashinatzchem. That a person should constantly strategize to fight their Yetzer Hara, to figure out what's best for them to be able to be successful. There's an interesting point in the footnote here. I'm just going to quote it from the footnote. It says, acts of humility are hypocritical when they're undertaken insincerely in order to disguise internal haughtiness. Meaning, if a person is doing something, like you're acting humble because you know that people are going to give you more kavod if you act humble, so then it's not going to work. But meaning, he's discussing the point, I guess, when will external humility, meaning, because that's kind of what we're saying kind of like fake it. So is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Because on the one hand, we say like, you're not really humble, don't act humble, because that's a bad thing. So that only works if your goal, what is your goal? What is the end goal? If your goal is, I want to get more kavod, and so I know to get more kavod is to act humble, then it's not going to work for you. But if your goal is, I'm going to act humble, because even though I might not be so humble internally now, I want to be humble, then you're going to be successful. He says, that when it comes to the members of the two things are to have like train yourself. That's what we kind of discussed. And now we're discussing the contemplation. And he's going to say there are four things. The first thing is to think about Mishnah and Perkei Avos, Perek Gimel, Mishnah Aleph, which is from Akavya ben Mehalala, who says, Dame Ayin Bata. 3 steps, you should know where you come from. Where you come from, Mitipa Surcha. Like, from a seed, a putrid seed. Where do we end up? We're going to end up buried in the dirt with worms and maggots eating our flesh, basically. Sounds luxurious, right? And before whom are we going to be judged for all our actions on this earth? Before Hashem himself. So he says, and we're going to elaborate on each of these, that when a person focuses on these things, so I said, it's not about thinking, I want to be humble, I want to be humble. When a person thinks about different ideas, these ideas, this being one of them, will lead a person to be humble. Right? Emes, now he's going on to discuss them further. Right? Emes, kol elahim nigdiam legaiva be'ozrim el hanaf. Each one of these things is to combat gaiva, to combat haughtiness, and it's to bring a person, to help a person become humble. When a person honestly looks at how lowly physical pleasure is in the physical world, and the lowly like origins we have, some putrid seed, it says, there's no room, there's no reason for you to feel superior than anyone else, to feel elevated, to feel chashav. It should cause a person to be embarrassed and ashamed of like how low we are. Obviously, on a side note, there are times in life where a person should realize like how chashav we are, right? It's not where we always want to constantly just like beat ourselves up. Not necessarily certainly in the 21st century, the way we view healthy avodas Hashem, but certainly in order to really properly think about attaining a nava, a person it is good to think about these things. What is this similar to? So I apologize, you didn't see this paragraph over here. So over here. The roe chazirim shegilim. Imagine someone who is like shepherding pigs. And he makes his way from shepherding pigs to become king. This would be the equivalent nowadays, if I were to give a mashal, this wasn't written in the 1700s, it would be like someone in the mailroom who becomes the CEO, right? A rags to riches story. So what's that person? That person, yeah, he's a hush of CEO, but you know what? He could think back to his days as the mailman in the mailroom, delivering mail to the people on the different floors of the building. So here, the roch hazirim shegil loch, the shepherd of pigs who became king. Called Asa Asher Yizkor Yamav Harishonim, that as long as all the time when he was thinking about his earlier days, it's impossible for him to have arrogance. He knows where he came from. He knows like how small he was. Says okay. Sheyachshov Kemokain Shebesov Kol Gdulosav Yashav Lafar Machal Kulas. If a person thinks that at the end, all that you accomplish, all of how great you are, you know where you're going into the ground. And you're going to be eaten by worms. Kol Shekin, right? How much more so? Shekana Goono Bishachach Shaon Gabaso. How much more so will your pride be subdued? How much more so will it put you in check? Keep you in check. Right? Because matuva, like what is all the great things that I've accomplished, all this great pleasure that I've attained. Magdulasa, what is my great status of CEO, of making this amount of money? When in the end, Boshes Uchlima, like this is where he's gonna be. He's gonna be in the end, he's not gonna have honor. He's gonna be ashamed of like his status. Excuse me. If a person thinks for even a second, for a moment, that when we die, we're going to appear in front of the court of Malachim, and at that moment, you're going to appear yourself before the King of all kings, before Hashem, in his holiness and purity. The Tachlis HaKadusha V'Atara. The Sod Kedoshim Misharsei Gebura, and the council of holies, and the meaning all these referring to the Malachim. Gibure Koach Usedvaro. They are people of strength who do the will of Hashem, right? That's what the angels do. In Behem Kolmum. They have no blemish. They're perfect Malachim. They're going to appear before a sea of angels and before HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. Who omed lefneim garua pachos the nivze mitzad atzmo. You're going to be this lowly, embarrassed person, disgraceful person. Hame umegoel mitzad masav. You're going to be impure, basically, and soiled from the actions that you did on this world. Hayarm rosh. So, are you going to lift your head up high? Are you going to be proud of who you are compared to them in front of you? Hayelo piston peh. Are you going to be able to speak? Are you going to be able to say anything to them? They're going to say, like, oh, you seem pretty confident down there. Like, how come you're not speaking up over here? Where's all that pride and honor that you had in the world? They're going to question you. I heard an idea that at the end of Shmona Esrei, could be some of you do this. At the end of Shmona Esrei, we put in like a pasuk that has to do with our name, based on like the first letter and last letter of your name, of your first name, and if you have a middle name. And so why do we do that? There's an idea that when you get up to Shemaim, that you're going to be so scared. They're going to say, "What's your name?" You'll be so scared of that, you won't be able to remember your name. But you will then be able to remember the Torah that would help associate your name. And from that pasuk, or those psukim that are tied to your name, you'll be able to come to remember your name. Pretty intense thing. This whole thing. Right? So Maya Shiva. What are you going to answer? How are you going to respond to the rebuke? Meaning there's no doubt, basically, that if a person had this, like really thought about this for a moment of time, then all the arrogance that you have is gonna vanquish, it's gonna disappear, gone, and it's never gonna come back. If you really take these ideas to heart, think about who you really are, where you come from, where you're gonna stand before, what really matters. Are you taking your yacht with you? If any of you do have a yacht, please invite me. But are you taking that with you? Right? I've heard a line from Rabbi Ephraim Goldberg who said, I've never seen a hearse that has a U-Haul behind it. And when you're on your way to the cemetery to be buried, you can't really take all your stuff with you. You can't take the U-Haul with you. Come to the next world. You have nothing. You're naked. So that's the first thing to think about. Next. Hashini, who inyan chiluf toldos hazman drove tomorrow second. And this is, when I was reading this, and I was preparing earlier. So this is how much more relevant nowadays. And this means the fact that you just never know what is going to happen. Meaning part of Gaiva is the fact that we are set in how a person is. A person is a CEO, so the Gaiva comes from their honor and their status. But if a person thought about, you know what? Company could go under tomorrow. I could be out of a job tomorrow. Like, let me ground myself and realize, it's not everything lasts forever. So I'd say it's more relevant now than probably when he wrote it, relevant because of like Corona and obviously everything, just the whole world has changed. Even though things are getting back to normal a little bit now, but we realize how quickly anything in life could change. Person's health, person's profession, whatever, everything could go. So chiluf toldos hazman, that means the unpredictable consequences of time. Rov t'moroseihem, in all its varieties. Now he elaborates, Ki asher kal ani. It's so easy for a rich person to become poor. Moshel evet, and for the ruler to turn and one day become the slave. Mechubad nikle, the person who's honored to be disgraced. Right? Look in the news, look at so many celebrities. I'd say every few weeks there's some celebrity who does something, they either do something or they say something, and now they're a public embarrassment. Sometimes they lose their jobs for it, sometimes they don't. The imhu yachal kolkach al nekala lashuv el amatzav hanivze be'enav hayom. And and the person could so easily fall into a situation that, meaning where currently right now in your state you think this is disgraceful. Like, I can't imagine being there. How could a person like be haughty in a situation where you can't be guaranteed anything, right? Imagine a person in a difficult job interview, right? You're not going to be haughty because you don't know if you're getting the job or not. Your life is going to change very soon. So when a person has the job, we think, oh, we're set. So no, realize you're not always set. Things could change at any moment also. How many illnesses could come like that? This that you're going to need to plead to people, to ask them to help you. And how many difficult situations could come to a person in life where they're going to need to go to someone who they never would want to say hi to. I would never be caught. I would never be seen saying hi to that person. And yet now you could be in a situation where that's the person you have to go to. There's a story of a person who was very anti-Rav Kook, and something happened to his daughter, and daughter needed like a special operation, and the best doctor was in Switzerland. She needed an operation, some procedure, and the best doctor I believe was in Switzerland, but it was almost impossible to get an appointment. But Rav Kook had the connections; he was able to. And this person who did disgusting things to Rav Kook went to Rav Kook and asked him to write a letter to this guy for his daughter. Rav Kook ended up doing it, and was happy to be able to do it to help this person. But you could imagine the person who like disgraces you, and then now they need help and they come to you for a favor. Let's see. Let me see where I am here. And we see these things all the time on a daily basis. This, just the fact that this comes up so much, and the fact that we know that this could happen to us at any moment, this should bring a person to real humility. And a person thinks more about their obligations. How we've abandoned certain things, we're lax in certain areas. We should be embarrassed and we shouldn't be haughty. You call him below your room levavel. We should be humiliated. We shouldn't be full of our heart, like full in our heart. Hu Omer, as it says in Yirmiyahu, Paraklam and Aleph, Sokim Yudzayin to Yirchet, Shama Shamati Ephraim Misnodeid, which means I've indeed heard Ephraim, like screaming in doing tshuva. What did he say? Yacharei shuvi nichamti. We said this line in like Slichos. After my return, after I did tshuva, I regretted it. Meaning now that I've done some tshuva, I realized like how bad I was. And after I became aware of my sinfulness, I slapped my thigh. I was ashamed and also humiliated. Right? A person, when they kind of see the light, when they have a wake-up call, so then that's the impetus for change often. Let's see. think we're gonna stop here just in terms of my time. Ezra Hashem, next week we're probably gonna do Thursday night.